Hi,
Right.
Charles. I have a question. I know
hmm
your research focuses on, how to reorienting education for sustainability.
Right.
I want to know what's your insight about how to make education itself more
Ah,
sustainable in AI age.
right. Well, I guess the idea that education itself has always uh, sort of been around.
Mm-hmm.
Whether in primitive societies of showing different ways of hunting and gathering and how to use things,
Yeah.
there's always been this way of uh, those with knowledge sharing it with
Mm-hmm.
the others and so on. But of course, it changes as time goes on. I think the bottom line is that education itself must be relevant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And both the learner and the person who is sharing the information have to believe that it is relevant and useful. The other aspect, of course, about sustaining is that society itself, whether it's governments or how society is organized, must provide a relevant form of education.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the systems fall apart. If we look into war torn areas and so on where education is not provided, it holds societies back for decades and so on. So it's really important that we start looking at what kind of education should we be providing now that is relevant not only for today,
Mm-hmm.
but relevant on into the future. So, your question about what is it that would make education sustainable over time
Yeah.
is fundamentally important.
Mm-hmm. Because after industrial revolution, so mostly our education system just set up, give students a lot of skill, knowledge, prepare them to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So right now with AI age, so in this case, because AI have a lot of knowledge, AI can do many things, a lot of skills. So in this case, for education, the purpose of education content, what are we going to teach students, how to teach
Yeah.
students, what education is, universities and colleges, high schools, what are we going to do for this?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a very important word when you say purpose.
Yeah.
And I think at the moment there is an awful lot of functionality
Mm-hmm.
being seen as the purpose of education. Employability
Yeah.
is an extremely important component, and that needs to be questioned.
Mm-hmm.
The if we look at the purpose of education seen through the eyes of government officials, it's about enhancing the GDP of the country.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you look at it through the eyes of a parent, the parents really don't care that much about the GDP
Yes.
of the country. They want to look at the quality of life of their child.
Mm-hmm.
That they want their children to have a better life than they have had, and so on. So it's trying to sort out why are we educating people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my line of work, of course, I'm trying to build in that it is important that we look in the big picture around what kind of a future do we want? Because
Mm-hmm.
now we realize for one of the first times, we are a generation who realize that we, with our technology, with our values, our ethics, the purpose that we've put into our education, we have put the entire planet and future generations in peril.
Yeah.
We have. What do we do about that? Do we continue to do what we have done and improve our education system so that we can do the damage even faster?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's our most educated people that are creating the problems.
Yeah.
So, do we deliver that same education
Mm-hmm.
with the values laden within it of the purpose of education for being well off and creating a greater GDP and so on? Or do we reflect and think about not only ourselves, but those who are yet to come, as well as those who are not really benefiting from the world's education systems as they are set at the moment?
Yeah, this question is because actually I taught for 38 years, many years. So right now I found more and more high percentage, students have emotion problem, depression, whatever. So I thought our education system, how to make it more sustainable.
I'm not sure whether students themselves, compared to my day, are more worried, upset, and so on.
Yeah.
Intuitively, I think they are. And when I see the emotional upset within schools and so on, are we detecting it better, or is this real? I kind of feel like you, that it's real, that it's there. There's so much stress that we have in background in everyday life, and the realization that the idea that I will be able to have a better life than my parents is shaken to the ground. I think many young people feel that they will not have the same quality of life. Their ability for housing, for automobiles and so on, the status symbols that we currently have as success are further out of reach of young people today than they were in our time. So again, it comes down to what are the underpinning values, ethics, the purpose of education, and how do we rethink and redesign this? This is a key question for those of us who are responsible for designing education systems.
So from your viewpoint, do you think this is urgent situation when we redefine our education system?
I think it's extremely urgent. And I look to innovative institutions, often private schools or public education systems that allow for innovation, whole schools set up where the parents agree their children are to go and become involved and try to pilot different approaches before we go in and try to reorient whole education systems, because often, we have to learn our way forward. It's not as though there is an individual who has the answer. We need to pilot, we need to test this, because one education system cannot serve the world. We must have diversity in education to suit culture. What is locally relevant? What's culturally appropriate? What can deliver success in the eyes of different places? But we need those innovative lighthouses to where people with vision, ideas, students who engage with consent, of parents and so on, and become these kind of learning communities. But we also need them to be researched and published about, and what can we learn from them? Because it is urgent. We do need to move, and in thinking forward, how do we scale up and move from the periphery into the core of the world's education systems? It is urgent.
Okay, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.